Thank you all for joining us again on today with Miss Michelle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Miss Michelle is one of our MG sisters, and she came on today to give us a little insight on her journey with MG, with myasthenia gravis. So, Miss Michelle, what led you to get checked out, or what were you going through before your diagnosis?
Um, I mean, looking back, I think I started complaining to my doctors about extreme fatigue
Mhm.
years ago, like even college years.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I started to notice this pattern that I would, get through a semester, but every time I had a break, I would just totally crash and burn. I'd be exhausted and drained and sick. I'd come down with something. Um, but it wasn't until probably when I got pregnant with my first son that I started having vision changes, and they could never get the prescription right. It would never be perfect.
Mm.
I had some like blurry vision, started with like a glare, a halo around lights, and I blew it off, figuring these are just some of the things that can happen during pregnancy. Our vision can change and maybe go back to normal. Um, so I didn't even bother going to a doctor until my son was probably almost two, because I just assumed it was something normal. Um, but then I ended up getting married. My husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and one of
Mm.
his things is he gets a lot of pain because his muscles get rigid. So I was always massaging his muscles, and I started noticing my arms would just get so weak, to the point where I just couldn't even use my arm. And again, I probably rationalized that for a while before I decided to see a doctor. I started having weakness in my legs. I would notice it using when I went up and down stairs. Um, I mean, even to the point where I literally collapsed when I was
Oh,
cleaning my
wow.
floor because my muscles got so weak. And I would get short of breath real easy. My heart would be pounding. So I decided it was time to go see a doctor. And so then I saw a heart doctor.
Mm.
I um, did end up seeing a local neurologist who did some initial testing, then sent me to another doctor with a plan for me to have a specific test, the single fiber EMG. But that other doctor I was referred to um, said, oh, well, it's going to be negative. They redid the initial lab work and stuff. And my husband came to an appointment with me, and she, looked at him and looked at me, and she's like, you have caregiver stress. And at that point,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
my husband had the young onset Parkinson's, but he didn't need much for assistance. I mean, I might
Mm.
have to have the socks. I really didn't buy that I had caregiver stress at that point. I mean,
That's
my
good.
positive attitude that towards his disease, and did so much for himself. He wasn't giving up or giving in. So I think it made it a lot less stressful for me. Um, I really was upset after leaving that appointment. Went back to my regular doctor. I had actually previously been diagnosed with sleep apnea. Because of the fatigue, I had seen a sleep doctor, and that doctor had even suggested myasthenia gravis, but he said, to see your neurologist.
That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah. So um, after going to see this specialist in Rochester, local to me, and they really just wanted me to see a psychiatrist. They
Wow.
sister lives in Long Island and said, "Why don't you come down here?" So I made an appointment and went and saw a doctor at Columbia Presbyterian who was a specialist in myasthenia, and went in there, and my sister immediately started saying, she's seen other doctors and they all think it's stress. And he said, well, I don't want to hear about the stress. I want to hear from you what your symptoms are. So he actually listened. He redid all the tests. I did get the single fiber test, which was actually my second one. The first one that they did do, even though they said they thought it was caregiver stress, they did it with new technology.
Mm-hmm.
The person running the needle was a fellow and had only done this a few other times. And immediately they said it's negative. So they didn't even look at the records. So when I had it done the second time, they're like, well, we couldn't even begin to tell you if it's positive or negative right after. We need to sit down and read it by nanoseconds. So I had to wait, over an hour for them to read it and get it back to the doctor. And then went back in and the doctor said, yeah, you have myasthenia gravis, which I think he knew even before the test that I did. But I don't know. I think going through the different doctors telling you that it's in your head, it's psychiatric.
He gave you peace of mind.
And I even went and saw another doctor to try to get established care closer to home. Mm-hmm. And went to the myasthenia gravis specialist, and my husband went with me, and she hadn't even looked at my records. She looked at him and said, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you have Parkinson's. And of course we were already aware. And she told me that I needed to see a cognitive behavior therapist because I had caregiver stress. But she couldn't recommend anybody specific to go to because I wasn't against seeking some therapy because I know stress makes the symptoms worse. I know it doesn't cause it, but she couldn't even recommend somebody who would specialize in something like this. So I ended up obviously going back to see my doctor in New York City, and still will go see him. Luckily, we're doing virtual because of the pandemic, but I would travel and stay with my sister and go to the doctor and come home. It'd be a long trip, but worth it.
It's always good to have a medical doctor that, one, listens and, gets you some sort of something, that, because we all want to know what's going on with us. And it's really upsetting in the MG community where we have, some medical professionals that kind of downplay it. And I see so many people, write about it and post about it. So I just come to the conclusion that they just don't really know anything about it. And it's understandable because we don't either, living with it. We just let them know what we're going through, and we supposed to work as a team to get our, selves, balanced. So how many years have you had MG?
I was officially diagnosed in 2015.
Okay.
And I had my thymus removed a few months later, so later that year. Within 6 months of my diagnosis, I had the thymus removed.
Did it help?
Well, I'd say overall, yes, at this point, but afterwards, he said that it could take up to 10 years to see the full impact of having it removed. And I know that's something you see different amounts of time too. Doctors give you different time frames of when can you expect to see results. I didn't get immediate results, and I actually kind of continued to go downhill and really had a bad episode probably within 8 months of having my thymus out, where I went to work and ended up just completely collapsing. I couldn't talk. I could barely breathe. I ended up going out in an ambulance. And that, again, ER was an awful experience too. And, they didn't really know anything about it. I think I had one other time I went to the ER after my first IVIG because my heart was pounding so much. And they tried to tell me to see an endocrinologist. And I'm like, I work in an endocrinology office. We don't, we
How
don't,
ironic was that?
but she still argued with me. I'm like, I work in that office. I know that's not something that we see. But then you start to think, maybe I'm wrong. And you start to doubt yourself, even though you might really know, you know symptoms, your own body, it just starts to make you question everything with the way they treat us sometimes.
Yeah, that's why they say we are our best advocate. We have to advocate for ourselves. I've had my episode of an ER nightmare. Thank goodness I had to yell through slurred speech. So I absolutely understand that. So with your, so later years now, how have you been, and treatments and things like that? How has that helped you?
Yeah. That first episode where I just really kind of crashed and burned, I got no help from the ER, so we got a hold of my doctor, and within a few days I was in New York City. They offered to either admit me to get me on the IVIG right away, or they would set it up for me to start getting it at home. And I mean, I have kids and didn't want to be away from them. So I came home, and it was hard. I barely got out of a recliner because I was really struggling. And it took probably about a month to get everything processed and start doing the infusions at home. But the first round was 4 days in a row. And then it was once a month for maybe 2 months. And then they did it every 3 weeks for a little bit. And then I went to the every 2 week schedule, which I've been on ever since. So I still get them at home every 2 weeks. Started prednisone at that time too, which I was dreading and hoping I wouldn't have to go prednisone. And I've been on it since. I mean, I'm definitely down and not on a high dose anymore, but it's hard. I mean, at the beginning of this pandemic, we tried to decrease a little bit more of the prednisone because we know that's such a big risk factor, everything. And I was literally isolating in my office that I work in from home, sleeping in here, everything, because I was so afraid that somebody was going to give me COVID. And so I think not only having a chronic illness, but then having this pandemic has wreaked havoc on our mental health.
I absolutely agree with you, because when it first started, I wasn't as bad, but my mom, my friends, I love them dearly, even my son. Well, we'll do this, we'll go, you just do this. And my mom would not allow me. I'm 34. My mom would not allow me to go in the store. So it definitely, I absolutely agree with you. But I'm glad that with everything coming out about COVID, it's kind of maybe putting a little ease on everybody. It's just now the vaccine is where we have to decide, okay, do I want to get it? Should I wait and see?
I know that's a tough decision right now.
Yeah, because we haven't seen anything about it with an individual with a chronic illness. So, well, I have seen a few MG people in the groups that we're in. Well, some of them actually work in healthcare, so they really don't have a choice depending on where they are. So one gentleman, he's a chaplain, I believe that's what he said. So he had to get it. So he said he's going to keep us posted. So I'm watching him, just to see. So we'll know soon. But I think it's pretty much a personal preference, like the flu shot. Do you want to
Yeah.
get it? Do you, don't? So
Yeah. I have a lot of nurse doctor friends that have been getting it. Some of them might have a chronic illness, but not myasthenia. So,
right.
and even that, if we took a handful of us that did get the vaccine, we might all react differently. So it's just so hard to know. I wish I had an answer to how would
Me
we
too.
make the
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So you mentioned that you do crafts. So this is the fun part of the interview. So tell us what you do, because we have a lot of hidden talents in the MG community. From last week, the gentleman from Denmark, just music is absolutely amazing, and we have some artists that paint and draw that's coming up. So tell us about your talent.
um, I think when I first kind of crashed and burned, and I was stuck in a recliner for probably about 8 months. I was just sitting there with nothing to do and decided, I can do little things if I'm sitting here in the chair. And as I started feeling better, I would do little stuff. I like to make jewelry, wire trees, quotes on canvases. Um, I play with a lot of different things, but it's been just something for me for stress relief,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes my mind. It's good distraction. So if I'm feeling anxious about things, it takes my mind off of it for a little bit.
That's good. Yeah, we
Yeah.
always end up finding something, and this is with everybody. We always find something that's deep down in us and is hidden. And even the pandemic I have never seen so many people start a business, become entrepreneurs. And I absolutely love it, because I have friends that I didn't even know that they had these talents. So I could just imagine, what we have in the MG community. We have singers and they painters, we have authors. I mean, we have some amazing people in
I
our community.
books.
Oh, you're an author too?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
did a textbook. Um, I wish I had the strength and energy to focus and be able to update it, but that was about 10 years ago that I published that. And then I've self-published a couple books related to diabetes because I'm a diabetes educator. So,
that's awesome. Oh,
yeah,
I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, so let's think about this. So you said, will you update your first book?
I would like to.
Okay.
Um, but I guess, thinking about how do I get out to one of those libraries where I can sift through articles and stuff. I know there's probably easier way to do it online to get access to a medical library, but I mean, it was always you had to work there or go to school there to have access to the library.
Yeah.
But I always loved doing that through books and doing the research part of things. But I feel
Where were
like,
you at when I was in school?
well, I feel like with the myasthenia though, I also get that foggy brain and just have a hard time focusing. So I don't probably write as much as I used to, just because I don't
Yeah.
focus as well.
Yeah, I get that too. I want to write a book. That's something that I want to do. I'm sure it's going to take me a while to do, but
What
hey,
would you?
and that's the thing. I don't know just yet. So I have a bunch of different ideas.
Mhm.
So, and I sleep with a notepad and pencil by me. So maybe if I have a dream, and I'm usually up because insomnia is crazy with me right now. but I'm always writing something down. So I'm just going to sift through that notebook and see what I can pull together.
And that's what I've done. I'll make a list or just take little notes, and I probably have folders and notebooks full of ideas of stuff. And it's like, when do I ever finish or
Yeah,
complete
you
one of
will.
the ideas? Full of ideas. It's just, what do I do?
You will. So, how has your family and friends dealt with your diagnosis over the years, and um, just how was their reaction?
I think I've had a variety of reactions. I mean, there's been a lot of understanding and support for sure. Um, some a little protective towards me, but I've also dealt with the "you're not sick" or "she's not sick." And I mean, I work really hard to try to not look sick. And I try not to even talk about my symptoms. But then it falls back on you that, geez, you're fine. So, there are people that probably believe I should be able to work outside of the home right now. And
Mhm.
I am not really able to. I mean, I do work from home, and that's made a huge difference. I mean, just being able to get back to work at all, which I started out kind of part-time and have tried to add a little bit of hours to my weeks. And I mean, hoping to even find a full-time job, but I still have limitations. And
Right.
I don't want to always admit them, but I have to accept them, and they are my reality. So it's hard when there are some people that don't believe, but I've had to accept that everybody has their own perception,
Right.
and I know what I feel and what I'm going through, and all that matters is that my doctor hears what I say, and my doctor and I figure out what's best for me, and can't really worry about what everybody else thinks anymore.
Yeah. That's
Oh, see, your whole way of thinking, your picture of your future, and there's a lot of grieving that goes with being diagnosed, grieving the loss of what we thought our life was going to be. I think that's been probably one of my biggest challenges.
yeah, I think that grief um portion is definitely healthy for us to go through. I had mine, well, I was diagnosed when I was 6. So this is pretty much all that I know. So it
Mhm.
wasn't anything that I just pretty much I had to accept it. But I had my grief period where I was like, why? Like, why me? But as I got older, I accepted it. But I actually have lived very, comfortable. I had my hiccup, several, but now I I understand why, because I'm doing this, so, and it's not, I absolutely adore doing this and getting to know so many people literally from all over the world, like they're Africa, everywhere, and I talk to everybody. And it's so interesting to see the differences from the states, and then, across seas, and just, you know, we're not always down. We have those moments, but I have seen more smiles in the MG community than I have seen people, I can't do this. You can, and we're going to get you through it. We're going to figure out how we're going to do this. So, we have the awareness and spreading the education, but I also wanted to pull a different side to it, the uplifting part of it, because we can uplift each other, and we can have and create our own normalcy within our MG journey. It's
Mhm.
going to take us a few more minutes, maybe a longer nap, but that's fine. We'll still get through it and we're still going to live our lives.
Yep. I mean, really, without my diagnosis, I wouldn't have experienced some of the blessings that I do have in my life. I mean, being able to work from home. I had done it one other time for a little while, and yeah, it was worked great at the time, but this really pushed me to, explore other options and helped me to learn more about myself, to listen to my body. I mean, I
Mhm.
feel like before I was diagnosed, I was just always go, 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 and you don't even stop and sense where you're at. Now I have no choice. I'm forced to.
Mhm.
So there's things that are good that come from having a diagnosis. More
Yeah.
awareness for ourselves,
Yes.
appreciation for what we have. Yeah, like a whole different perspective on life.
And that's definitely the key. You have
Hmm.
to, just look at everything a little differently sometimes, but that's okay.
It does. I feel like I appreciate a lot more, thankful
Yeah.
for the job that I do have. And then I see other people that are maybe miserable in their job. And I'm like, I'm just thankful I have one. I'm thankful that I get to do what I love to do. Maybe not in the same way that I originally pictured, but I'm still able to do something I love and I'm passionate about.
That's so, oh, I'm so happy. I am so grateful that you did this with me, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to, speak with me. So, in closing, I always ask, what is something that you can share with the MG community? It could be a word, a phrase, or something to let them know that it's okay, and it's okay to keep living.
Mm, Um, I don't know. I think if I've learned anything, it really is about how to have a little grace with myself, give myself a little room, um, not put so much pressure on myself and expect perfection, more acceptance and being more open and authentic about where I'm at with things. I mean, doing this really was a big jump for me. I don't really talk about myself or my health uh, very often, but it was a good thing for me to kind of reach out and do something beyond what I'm necessarily comfortable with. I mean,
Mhm.
that doesn't have to hold us back.
Like I said, I am grateful that you agreed to do this. And, like I said, I definitely was going to make it comfortable for you. And um,
Thank you. You
just
did.
thank you. And, your story, your little piece of your MG journey will inspire someone else. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to inspire mankind in whatever way, positive way that we can. And your words will inspire within the MG community and beyond.
Thank you.
You
I
are
really
so welcome.
opportunity to chat with you.
Absolutely. And in closing, we're going to thank Ms. Michelle once again for coming on and speaking with us. And we definitely look forward to future sit downs and, exploring new things that we're going to do and, just sharing positive influences within the MG community.
Thank you.